Welcome to this episode of Chattin with Staxx. I'm your host, Bill Staxx, and today I got Mama.
We are texting a lot. Like any chance we get, he's sending me messages. And the device that he had, if you put money on it, you could text any number that you knew of. So it'd be 10 cents a message to receive and 10 cents a message to send. So if you put $15 on this device, it's 150 messages, and you can text until the money runs out. And then you have to put more on.
And you were burning through it, right?
Burning through it. And he's only got his mom that's putting money on his books at this point. So there's several days that I go without being able to text him until his mom gets the money to put on it. And then anytime she'd put the money on it, he would immediately text me. Or he would take someone else's chirp and say, "Hey, can I use a couple messages? I'll give you a soup or something for it. I
And
just need to
what's the
check on her and
chirp?
make sure."
Is it a cell phone? He has a cell phone in there, or
It's
is it a jail
it's
phone?
not a it's not a full blown cell phone. It's like an Apple iPod, and the only thing they can do on it is text. They can't receive pictures. If you send messages with emojis, it doesn't go through. If you send vulgar messages or any like other messages, you would have to like maneuver it and be creative with how you typed it in for the message to go through.
Oh, but they have those in their cells.
Yes. They have a charging
Wow,
station in the
I,
pod
I
that they can put them on.
I've never been in a prison where they have text messaging. Never. I've
That was
always
that
was
was
in a prison where there is none of that.
Yeah, that was very new to me because they also had the kiosk in the pods where you could do your video visits and you could send emails, and that's how they would get the pictures if you sent emails. Because when you sent inmate mail to the facility, they wouldn't give them the actual letter. It would be sent to a third party. They would scan it and they'd get the scanned copy.
Wow, that's crazy too. I would used to get regular letters, no scanned copy, but they would take the envelope sometimes, and cut out
Yeah,
where the
no,
stamp was. I did time in
you would.
prison myself. I did about 5 years altogether and changed my life, started this podcast and doing things a little different now. But so
Well, I'm
this
glad you're deciding to do something different and not re-offending and going back in like 90% of the people do when they get out.
it's been about 13 years since I've been in prison. It's been a long time. I don't plan on going back.
That's good.
When you give him your number, does he ever message it? And when he messages it, if he does, are you like freaking out on him?
So he only sent 3 text messages to the actual number, and that was the night that they started putting me up front and I couldn't get to my phone. So he was blowing the texting app up and he thought I was ignoring him. So he wanted to get my attention by texting my actual phone number. Yeah.
And it's in the card, so it's not getting your attention anyway, right?
No, I didn't. He texted it around midnight, 12:15ish. I didn't see it till 2 o'clock in the morning. And as soon as I seen it, I texted him on the texting app and was like, "What the f? Like, why? You know this is gonna get me caught up. You know you're not supposed to do that. You're only supposed to use that number when you get transferred so that we can talk."
And what were the 3 messages he sent? It was that one.
It was him being frustrated with me, telling me, "Oh, I see how it is. You're just leading me on. You don't want what my heart wants. I'm more serious about this than you are." And just threatening to like cut things off and basically like I'm done with you because you can't give me the attention 24/7 that I want.
Are you feeling like strong feelings for him at this time?
Yes, it didn't take me very long to fall for him just because my fiance wasn't giving me a lot of support when it come to my dad's cancer battle and diagnosis. But as
Yeah.
soon as I told Hunter, his father passed away in 2019, so he knew what it felt to lose a parent, and he was trying to prepare me for that mentally, telling me, go spend as much time with him as you can, asking me how I was feeling, asking me how I was dealing with everything. So he's basically giving me advice on how to process my dad dying at this point.
And
So
he's giving you the attention that you're craving, right?
yes, he was gave me all the attention that I needed from my fiance at home.
So one time you're doing your rounds, right? Yeah, I heard this in your story. One time you're doing your rounds and he tells you he's got a tattoo.
Yes.
And what was that? Explain that one to me.
So he's telling me that he's gonna get a tattoo of my name on like the inside of his ring finger right here. And I didn't believe him at first. I was like, "Nah, you're just trying to say this so that I can get more hooked into you." And then literally my next round, he asked to go get a tablet and goes out in the stairwell with me and puts his finger up like this and goes, "I told you I was going to do it." And it was literally my first name with a heart behind it.
What did you say to him?
I was a little flattered just because I was interested in this dude and I was falling in love with him at this point. But at the same time, I was like, why would you do that in this facility? Like, you couldn't wait until you got to a different facility. Like, if someone sees that, they're going to know that that's me because I'm the only one with that first name that works there.
Yeah.
And I was like, you're dumb. And he was just like, "Oh, I promise no one's going to see it. That's why it's on the inside of my ring finger and not on the outside."
And you know, by this point, he's probably bragging to all the other inmates, like, yo, I got her, man.
He was, because anytime I worked and I was alone in my station, I would turn the speakers on and just listen. I would listen constantly. And then it would be him bragging about it, well, I got someone who actually loves me now, and trying to talk about more about his story when he found out I was listening. And he would go into into a cell with someone on purpose when he knew I was listening and would tell more about his story and his background and everything so I could hear it.
Up to this point, when he gets that tattoo, has he asked you to bring anything into the facility?
No, he didn't ask me to bring anything in until I think I brought the stuff in on February 11th, so it was about a week before that. Yeah.
Early February. What did he say to you? How did he approach you about bringing things into the facility?
He comes up to me and he says, "I have a letter for you. I need you to read it as soon as you can." And in the letter, it was him talking about how much trouble he was getting in because he was losing at the card games. He owed people a bunch of money. And when he owed people money, his mom would put that amount on that person's books, but wouldn't put anything on his books at the time. So he was constantly running out of stuff, constantly running out of hygiene, constantly running out of food, constantly running out of Kool-Aid. And he was just like, "They're talking about jumping me. I need your help. I need you to go to this mailbox." And he gave me that address. He's like, "I need you to go here and I need you to pick up this pack of ink pens." And that's a big question that people have for me. Why was it just ink pens? So naive me looked at the package when I picked it up out of the mailbox and it looked completely sealed and it looked like it wasn't tampered with. There was no tape around it. There was no evidence that the box had been tampered with. It was literally a box of just 4 cheap ink pens.
What was it for real?
I found out in late October, early November that there was Suboxone strips in those ink pens
Oh my God. So
because he
he's
was in a
putting you
different.
in a really bad situation, terrible
Yeah,
situation.
I found that out because I was on video visit with him in the other facility that he was in, and everyone was like, "Oh, is that her? Is that her?" Because at this point, anytime he moved facilities, he would always tell everybody who I was, how we met, and everything. And so he was like, "Yeah, this is the one I told you about. She used to bring me stuff all the time. I had her bringing in Suboxone for me." And I looked at him on the video visit. I said, "What are you talking about?" He'd be like, "Oh, baby, you know those ink pens you brought in for us to tattoo? Yeah, they had Suboxone in them."
And you had no clue.
No clue, because like I said, I looked the box over, even got the flashlight out on my phone and was sitting there looking at it to make sure it hadn't been tampered with. And it literally looked like someone just picked them up from the store and shoved them in the mailbox, and I picked them up.
You go grab this box of ink pens, and how do you bring it in? And walk me through that.
So the day that I went and grabbed him, like I said in my video, I told my fiance I had to go into work early for a meeting because we were having different meetings because they were changing a bunch of people in admin and we were being introduced to them and everything. And we had a temporary jailer. Once the jailer that was there when I started, he retired within like a month after I started. So the sheriff's office took over supervision of the facility. And so I went, got these ink pens, and it was literally before I went to work. So I was in my uniform walking down the street, going to this mailbox and picking up these pens. And I go, and that's when they start moving me up front. They tell me, hey, we're going to have you work in booking today. You need to learn it more. And so I was like, okay, well, let me go to my car, because I would hit my nicotine vape during our pre-shift meetings and then I would put it back in my car. So I literally, my pants had like 2 cargo pockets in them that were like that long.
Yeah.
So I literally just stuck the pack in the pocket and just closed it, because at this point I'd lost a bunch of weight, so my pants were really big on me, so you couldn't see if I had anything in my pockets. So the uniform wasn't tight like a lot of people suspect it was. It was really loose, because I was over 300 pounds when I started that job, and while I worked there I lost about 100 pounds running up and down stairs twice an hour every day for 12 to 16-hour shifts. And so I put that back in my car, finished my shift, and he was telling me, are you going to be able to come back here? Everyone's getting restless, because I told him when I picked him up, I'll bring him into him that day. And when he texted me about it, he would always say, did you go to that mailbox to get the money for my books? And I'd be like, yeah, I got them. And he's like, okay, well, can you put them on my books today? And I was like, yeah, I'll do that for you. And basically that was me saying, I'm going to bring the ink pens for you the next day I work, or that day. And I couldn't bring them to him that day, so everyone's getting impatient. Everyone's getting really, really aggravated with how he's just running his mouth constantly. And him and his pod celly, his celly, got in a fight one day because he would just run around saying racial slurs against all the black inmates that were in there. And finally, this dude just got tired of it and just knocked him over the head. And I found that out when he came out to help me open up the door, because the door of the cleaning carts, there wasn't like a handle that you could just like easily just pull it out when you put your key in it. You would literally have to stick your fingers underneath where you put your key and like yank it open.
Yeah.
And it was really hard, so he would always help me. And then his face was really red one day and he was really upset. And I was like, what's going on? He was like, nothing. I'll talk to you later. And then he just went back to his cell. That was like one of the quickest interactions that we had in the cleaning closet. But I found out the next day through someone else in the pod that that was what happened. He just didn't want to tell me. So the next day I go and I work. I literally get told, hey, we need you to go in the back and do a round and then come back up front as quick as you can. And I was like, all right, I got you. I went and put my phone and my vape in the car, and I grabbed the ink pens because I had them hidden in a console in my car. So I went and grabbed them, stuck them in my pocket, did my round. I got to his pod and he sees me and he's surprised because he's not expecting me to come back there. And he's looking at me, giving me a signal like, hey, do you have those? And I just nod my head yes. And when you go around the pod, there's a door and a little hallway that leads to another door to the other cell on the top, so you wouldn't have to go up and down the stairs to move the cell next to it. So I literally just looked at the cell that was right there by the door and I just threw them real quick. And he went in and got it, told me thank you and that he loved me, and I just went on. And then I went back
Now
up front.
there's no other COs in that area when you did that.
No, because when you did the rounds, you would do the rounds by yourself, and you would just have your partner sit there and watch you on cameras. And where the cell was at the door, it wasn't very clear on the camera that we had in the back. But apparently, it's a lot more clear on the camera they had in the captain's office.
Oh, so did they see you do that, and did they have video of you doing that?
They have video of me throwing something into the cell, but they couldn't tell exactly what it was. And he told them that it was just a letter.
Wow. So, are did they make you move up front to work up front because they suspected something was going on?
I really believe that that's why was moved up front, because I had worked in booking a little bit. I wasn't super familiar with it, because they knew that I could do a good job in the back and that everything was supposed to get done. Because if I didn't work back there for a couple of days, they wouldn't get uniform exchange. They wouldn't get rec time. Like none of the other officers cared about the procedures and the policy that we had to do. It was just, oh, they'd ask for rec time. It's absolutely not. I ain't got time for that. Whenever they would just be sitting there watching YouTube on the computer in the station or just not paying attention. And so you couldn't really depend on some of the coworkers that worked there to watch your back while you were doing rounds. because they would just be distracted.
After you give him the pens, what happens next?
He texts me, thank you, I got it all taken care of, there's no risk of me being hurt, everyone's happy. And that was what happened for about a week. And then when I talk about when they fired me and they showed me the picture of me and him walking in the pod, that was when he was like, hey, I hate to ask you this, but I need you to go to that mailbox and pick up another box of pens because everyone loved those pens. They did really good for, tattooing. The springs worked really good. And I looked at him, I was like, at this point, there's no going back because I've already done it one time. And I know if I don't do it again, then someone in the pod's going to snitch on me or he's going to snitch on me himself. So I did go back to that mailbox and pick up a second box of pens that I was never able to bring in.
Oh, but you had it.
In my car for
And
months after I got fired.
Did you open it and was there Suboxone in it?
I opened it and there was a nicotine vape, a vape battery, and 2 THC carts.
Wow, so he was playing shit out of you.
He was.
And you had no clue.
I had no clue, and I didn't even find because I didn't even look at it myself. I just left him in the console and kind of forgot about it until he called me one day when I was taking my kids somewhere, and he's like, "Hey, do you still have that box in your car?" I was like, "Yeah." He goes, "Open it up and just keep whatever's inside of it."
You said that he got another tattoo. Can you explain that day?
Oh man, he tells me over the speaker, and he's like, "Hey, I want to get another tattoo." And there's a part I forgot that I left out in the story was I had told him what all my children's names were because he told me what his daughter's name was. And my oldest daughter had the same name of his best friend. And now that's what he's claiming that he got the tattoo for was for his best friend. But he tells me over the speaker, I'm getting another tattoo. Are you going to be okay with this? And I'm like, no, not really, but you're a grown man and I can't stop you. And he goes, okay, well, next time you come through, it'll be done. So I need to go get a tablet so I can show you. And then he literally opens up his hand and goes like this, and it's written across his hand this way, and it's my daughter's first name.
And what are your thoughts?
I looked at him, I said, what the F? You haven't even met her. Until to this day, he's never met my daughters. He has talked to my sons over video chat and everything, but he has never seen my daughters' faces. He has never heard their voices. Like, I kept that away because I knew as soon as their dad found out that I was introducing them to this man, I knew it was going to be a problem. So I just left them out of it because he's been in, not him exactly, but his brother's been involved in the prison system a lot. He's in his 40s now, and he's been locked up off and on since he was 16. So he wasn't a fan of any of that. And then I was like, well, why are you doing this? He was like, well, that's my stepdaughter. Like, we're going to get married. And I wanted to show you that even though I haven't met them yet, I still love and care about them.
And you're just like freaked out about this.
I am absolutely freaked out. I was just like, now that one's going to get you in trouble because they can see it because it's on the top of your hand. And let me just add, that tattoo is done so poorly. Like, the way it's written, you have the N and then you have a really big space and then you have the rest of the name. Like, it is done so poorly. The other one that he had looked 10 times better.
You guys are like planning a future together. You're like have this imaginary relationship in your mind, but there's some of it is real. Like,
Mm-hmm.
but you got this imaginary relationship that you guys are going to get married and everything's going to be great. He's going to get transferred and you guys are going to be together, right?
Yes, we thought that when he got transferred, it would be to an actual prison. And because he's still married to his ex-wife at this point, he had a wife. And I seen their wedding photos on Facebook.
Did you know he had a
I
girl at this time?
I didn't find that out until in February when he tells me that he wants to marry me. He says, I want to marry you, but at the same time, I need to divorce my ex-wife first, and they hadn't been together since they got split up right after they got married, and she got an EPO on him because of his abusive ways, and he thought that he would tell me the story and I would leave. At the same time, I was just like, everyone makes mistakes. I gave him the benefit of the doubt.
That's not his kid's mom, right?
No,
It's another girl.
it's another girl. Him and his daughter's mom, they never got married. They literally got pregnant with their daughter 2 months into their relationship.
Now, was any girls ever visiting him or anything that you knew about?
Not that I knew about. I didn't find out about him talking to other females until he got moved to the other facility and when they started building the case against us. And then after the indictment came out, he got moved back to that facility.
Walk me through some of the last times you see him in the facility, and what are people around your job saying? People suspicious on what's going on?
When I would work up front on Mondays, he had a class that he would go to, and it'd be MRT. And the classroom was not too far from booking, so anytime they needed to go to the restroom while they were in the classroom, they would go to the booking inmate bathroom. And so he found out that I was working up there one day, said that he needed to go to the bathroom, come up, seen me sitting there because I was typing out a report, and he went to the bathroom, and he comes on this side of me where the computer is and asks me how I'm doing, tells me he loves me, tells me he misses me, and to text him whenever I can. So he's trying to come up with ways to come into booking to see me. And that's the only time I really saw him then because I was mostly working up front, whether it be booking or it be main.
Because people were talking, right?
Yes, my supervisor looked at me, the one that I got really close with, and was like, "Why does he always want to talk to you while you're in there?" And I'm just like, "He's just talking to me about some stuff he's going through." Oh, and I just listened to him. And then some of the new officers that would come in would see me and him interact, and they looked at me, they'd be like, "He's got a crush on you, don't he?" And I just brush them off. I'm like, "Nah, it's not like that." But at the time, I really believe that they did know because when I would talk to him over the speaker in the cell, there was a speaker in the station that I worked in, and the person that was in Maine could click that speaker and listen in. So I believe that someone listened in one day and caught me talking to him.
So now you don't know, but they're building a case on you. Tell me about when they call you in, you go into work. Walk me through that day.
Okay, so I go to because there's a front porch on the outside of the door that where we would stand and do our pre-shift meetings. And I get onto the porch, and Mr. Clean came up to me, and he was like, "Hey, there's a lot of talking going on. Like, your reputation is not very good around here right now. You need to think of ways to fix that." And not 30 seconds after he tells me that, the captain comes out, points at me, and goes, "Let's go to my office."